One of the most annoying things that beginner drummers, upper beginner, intermediate drummers have to deal with is the whole issue of having a weak hand. One hand just ain't up to snuff with the other one. It sucks because it affects a lot of stuff that we do on the kit. So if you're one of these drummers, be glad that you hit that play button, man, because Dr. Beatdown is in the house. I'm gonna show y'all how to fix it. These drummers that's currently dealing with the whole issue of having one hand weaker than the other one, first thing I need you to realize is that you're not alone. All right? Within a few hours of this video being posted, you're gonna have an entire emotional support group in the comment section. Every single drummer goes through it. I went through it twice. Once when I started playing the drums in the first place, and then a second time when I was developing my traditional grip, because I was starting from scratch. But I learned a lot of things during that process. And I'm about to transfer all of that information to you for free. Now the good news is, fixing the problem is relatively simple. In order for you to get your weak hand up to the same level as your strong one, you just need three things, all right? Proper form, repetition, and time. So as long as you're doing exercises with the right movements, the right form, right? You do it over and over and over again, and you're patient, you'll fix the problem in no time. Now, instead of aimlessly smacking on the pad until you think the problem is fixed, there's definitely a smarter way to attack the problem. And the best way to do it is to just dismantle the whole thing and work on each individual part separately. Because there are four main things that you're trying to get in shape when you're getting that weak hand up to snuff. There's control, power, rebound, and speed. So I'm just going to show you some really simple exercises, plus a couple of tips that you can do to get each four of these in shape. Because basically what's going to happen is that all of these things will eventually work together to make this work as a complete unit. Now, I just want to address a popular question that I'm sure a lot of you out there are thinking right now. When it comes to the issue of getting your weak hand in shape, what about using a heavier stick in your weaker hand? I mean, I've done it. I can't tell you that I've gotten anything super significant out of it. Maybe some of you have. I haven't. For me, it's probably more of a placebo thing than anything else. But I have a sort of a cooler, smarter solution than having mismatched sticks in your hands. Try this, all right? Now, you're gonna need a larger pad to do this. Preferably at least 10 inches. This is a 12 here, but try this, man. Get yourself a towel. Not a big one, just a small sort of hand towel like this. Yamaha drums represent. But you're gonna take a towel and you're gonna fold it, maybe fold it again. And essentially what you're gonna do is split your pad in half. And the purpose of doing this, the whole reason behind doing this, is you're gonna add resistance to one side of the pad. This way, you can continue to do the exercises as you normally would, but your weak hand is gonna work just an extra 10 to 15% harder, which is really all you need. And then from here, just grab yourself some tape like this. And you just wanna tape that down because you don't want it moving around on you while you're doing your exercises. So I just take that, split your pad in half, tape that towel down, right? And now you have two completely different surfaces. That's going to offer two completely different levels of resistance, and it's going to make one hand work harder than the other one. So this first exercise I'm going to show you is about developing your speed with your weak hand. It only requires one stick for this particular one, and it's super dead simple. All it is it's a basic eighth note exercise. You're going to be playing eighth notes with your weaker hand, but you're going to do it in a way that it creates a little bit of a flow happening. So instead of just tap, tap, tapping away like that, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the downbeats and the offbeats. So if we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that kind of thing, that's how we're going to play it. So we're going to use the shoulder of the stick and the tip of the stick. And on the pad, at a slow tempo, all right, don't rush this. All we're going to do is we're going to play the downbeats with the shoulder of the stick, and then you're going to slightly lift your wrist up to tap the offbeat notes, all right? So if we're counting 1 and 2 and 3, and it's just like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and. That's it. So I got kind of a German grip happening here. Palm facing down. And down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's all it is. All right, so when I'm playing with the shoulder, basically the stick is hitting the pad pretty flat. And then for the upbeats, I'm just using the tip of the stick to play those notes. Keep the elbow nice and relaxed and tucked in. And just focus on working the stick from the wrist. After a while, this is going to become pretty comfortable. And as it does, you just gradually increase your speed. You don't need a metronome to do this. You can use one if you want, but this is something you can do in front of the TV, man. And then after a while, you sort of get this kind of thing happening, and it starts to become really comfortable. Now the cool thing about it is that when you finally develop this, you bring in your stronger hand again, your right hand, your left hand, whichever one it is. If you do that and you alternate the two, then you get this whole thing happening. Now the critical thing about doing this exercise, of course, is that you're starting with your left hand. You're starting with the weak hand, all right? When you do that, you're sort of building that memory, you're building that muscle, and that'll play a large part in bringing that up, on the same level as your stronger hand. So we were doing that exercise using the wrist. It's also very important that you play singles with the fingers as well, right? Because you want to develop your fingers as well in your weak hand. There's a very simple thing you can do with this. And this was critical in helping me, particularly with my traditional grip. But you're going to use both sticks for this exercise. And the cool advantage about having a dominant hand is that you can literally use it to train your weaker hand, right? If this one already knows what to do, then you can use this as a reference for what your weaker hand needs to do as far as hand positioning, fingers on the stick, all that kind of stuff. So the one thing that I used to do, which was like super nerdy, you can do this if you want, but I had my laptop set up in front of me and I had it on photo booth with the camera pointed to the sticks. The point of doing that is to make sure that when you're doing this particular exercise, you want your hands to look exactly the same. You want one, I'm talking about the match grip here, but you want one to be sort of a mirror image of the other one, all right? So in the case of trying to develop this with your weaker hand, you can literally do this with your stronger hand. All right, slow it down and take a look at everything that's happening down there. You can use that information for your left hand and start doing this simple sort of unison exercise, all right? And it's just taps. That's all you're gonna do, just like that. And while you're doing this, you're just gonna look at your hands and try to make sure that they look and they sound exactly the same. Now, if you're doing this correctly, then you shouldn't hear any flams when you're doing this. There's like no flam action with this, all right? It should sound like one single stroke between the two sticks. All right, and this is one of the reasons why I don't recommend using a super heavy stick in the other hand, because generally, like if you're, wanting to pick up like a giant marching stick and use it in the other hand, the two sticks are completely different sizes and one's going to be longer than the other one. So the balance is going to feel different. The weight is obviously going to feel different. Everything's going to feel different. You're looking for uniformity here. You want everything to feel exactly the same. So that's why I recommend just using whatever sticks you'd use when you're playing. And yeah, that's all you're gonna do, man. So for this particular one with the fingers, I'm just using my back fingers here. My fulcrum is actually with the middle finger. So I wanna do the exact same thing with the other hand. Line the sticks up, all right? Just examine everything, the position of the fingers. The little pad here is resting in the same spot. Even like I'm using Promark sticks here, even the distance, you can get this extreme with it. Even the distance from your finger to the stripe in the middle. Like you want everything completely identical. And boom, that's all you're gonna do. Just start tapping out single hits. And get them to sound as even as possible. So basically what's happening here is your muscles in your left hand, because you don't use them as often the same way. That's the only reason why they're weak, right? But your muscles are learning what to do. They're learning how to move like they do in your strong hand. This is why going slow is fine. You don't have to go for speed with this. Speed will come once this is developed. So let's talk about developing the rebound in your weak hand. Instead of getting too deep into it, I do have a very complete video called How to Fix Your Weak Doubles. I'm going to link that video at the end of this one so you can go and check it out, just so you can get all of the proper form and all of that stuff. But the idea with this is just to play double strokes on the pad, your split pad. Play them as you normally would. Lead with the left, all right? But it's going to work a little bit harder because now we got a little bit of resistance here. So without getting into too much detail, basically how to play a proper double is you want to accent the second note of the double. You're going to do that just by snapping it out with your fingers, sort of pulling the butt end of the stick up towards your palm like that. So you get this kind of thing happening. You can think of it like a throw and a catch if you want, like if that helps you with the visual, but that's basically what's going down here. All right, so again, check that video out to get all the details on how to do that. But that's the whole deal with this, man. That's all you're gonna do with this split pad here. You're just gonna play double strokes leading with the left. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, just look at the hands and make sure they look exactly the same. All right, so this might bring up another question, the whole thing about pillows. You get a lot of drummers talking about, yeah, you should practice with a pillow when you're working on your double. I'm not one of them dudes, man. I kind of think it's a little ridiculous, kind of silly, a little counterproductive to do that. For the same reason why you wouldn't want to learn how to dribble a basketball on a beach. When it comes to learning proper form when you're playing the double stroke, because it has a lot more to do with just, bouncing the stick off the surface. You want to be able to feel the properties of the stick when you're doing that. And then the other thing too is that a double stroke is basically a controlled bounce, right? You got a surface that doesn't have any bounce, you're not going to learn anything about rebound. So again, it makes more sense to me to practice your double strokes on a surface that still has a little bit of rebound, but just makes you work a little bit harder to get it. So let's talk about developing control with your weak hand. One of the most important strokes that every drummer needs to learn, I think, is the Moeller stroke. And the reason why that is just because of what it is and what's involved. Basically, it requires one main downstroke, one controlled bounce, and one pull-up. This particular movement is going to be useful in a ton of different ways when it comes to playing the kit. So just learning the movement itself is super important. So all it is again, it's gonna be one, you're starting with an accented stroke, and you're gonna let it bounce, and then you're gonna pull it back up. So you get this kind of thing happening, right? So throw it down, let it bounce, pull it back up. And again, this is something that you can do while you're sitting in front of the TV. You don't have to put a time limit on this. You don't have to do this for 10 minutes a day or whatever. You can do this for as long as you want, man. It's also a good idea to do the mirror thing as well, and do them with both sticks. And the object of the game, of course, is to get all 3 bounces to sound like one single bounce, right? You don't want any of them to flam, in other words. The reason why this stroke is so cool and so important is because it involves both using the wrist and using the fingers, right? Because you're throwing it down from here, and then the last stroke you're catching it with the fingers. So there's a good level of control happening there. When you're doing it. And if you're doing it on the surface that, you know, has that little extra bit of resistance on it, you do that over a period of time, man. Once you take this thing away, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, I know. I know a lot of y'all are thinking right now, didn't this sucker just tell us that he didn't like pillows? Let me clarify something. I don't like pillows for learning rebound, but for developing power, pillows are awesome. I actually used pillows a lot while I was trying to develop my backbeat when I was learning the traditional grip. And pillows are great because the surface is very forgiving. You know what I mean? It's going to absorb all the impact. If your technique sucks, you know, you're not going to injure yourself. So pillows are great just for getting all your form down and just doing single hits. And I did this a lot, man. And this, I can tell you 100%, played a huge part in helping me develop my backbeat with a traditional grip. So you can do the same if you want to get your power up with your weak hand. My suggestion to you would be to make sure, I mean, this is a little bit higher on me right now, but when you're setting it up, have your pillow, the top of the pillow, the same surface as where your snare would be. This is one of those things where you want to be seated correctly to do, because you want the whole flow, right? You want everything to be situated correctly. So you don't want to be sitting too low, like on a couch or whatever. But that's all you're going to do, man. Just a whole bunch of single hits, like strong single hits on the pillow to develop your backbeat. So I normally go with either like a German or an American grip, palm facing down. And, you know, again, if you want to do that whole Moeller action where you're working it from here, bringing that elbow in to whip that stick down, this is a perfect way to do that. So I suggest, you know, doing it with one stick, you know, picking up the other one. You can do alternate strokes like that. Again, good way to make sure everything's feeling the same. And you can also do unisons like that. And this is really cool because you can whip it good. Throw that stick down hard, man. Play with maximum power and just really get that whole thing down. Great way to bring your power level up with your weak hand. So that's it, man. Those are my tips. I can guarantee you, when you start doing these exercises and taking a little bit of that advice, you're gonna get your weak hand as strong as your other hand in no time. The only thing I can't tell you is how long it's gonna take, because you get out of it what you put into it. So the more often you do this, obviously, the faster results you're gonna get. So now you can go ahead and get to work. By the way, man, if you've been digging this t-shirt this entire time, this is one of mine. This is in the merch shop if you want to get one. The link will be in the description box. This comes in a few different colors. New viewers, new subscribers, welcome to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when the next video is coming out. Drop a comment below, share this video if you dig it, like, subscribe. See you next video. That's how we do, man.